Hello, everyone. This is Pro Football Explorer here, and I never really thought about doing this before, but why not? I want to do a video based around the rankings that I've been doing, and I didn't do it for the first week and for the second week. So let's start off with the beginning. Before all the games were played, week one. And this is more of two conferences, you know, ranking each conference just based around those two, AFC, NFC. The one you see on the screen right now is my NFC conference ranking. Now, by looking at this is heading into week one, and you'll see the AFC in a second. So, week one, going into it, the Rams are going to be the top notch team. They were the Super Bowl champions, defending champions. And giving them the one spot, I think, is probably relatively easy. Now, here's where things get a little bit wonky. Green Bay above Tampa Bay. At the time, Buccaneers were losing offensive linemen. They were going through a new coaching regime. Wasn't sure what was going to go on. Was Tom Brady going to make this line look good? And he did, but that'll be up in a second. Green Bay, I thought they had the much more talented roster outside of pass catchers, mainly wide receivers. San Fran, you know, I think they are the fourth best team at the time, thinking that this is still a talented roster. This is still a Super Bowl contending roster. And this is, the thought process going into it. This is still a contending roster. Just have to see what Trey Lance does. Now, Philly, Minnesota, Washington. Now, just to say, too, these are basically my wild card teams going into it. Philadelphia being uh, the division winner, even though San Fran's higher than them, but San Fran has a better team. Uh, Minnesota, they have a better roster. In terms of talent wise, who knows how the secondary was going to do, along with the offensive line. Washington, as much as I don't like it, Washington was one of my playoff teams going into the year. This was in my season predictions. Uh, New Orleans, I would say, was the closest team in terms of being a wild card contender. The offense was basically going to be an unknown. Defense was still solid, and this is before the Chauncey Gardner trade. Then you have all the other teams with Arizona, Cowboys, and Carolina, mostly teams I see being mediocre. And I think you already guessed between the bottom five with Hawks, Lions, Bears, Giants, and Falcons. Seattle, I wasn't sure about how their defense was going to do along with their offense. God, even seeing this Broncos stuff behind me, it kind of hurts. But, the truth hurts and you got to mention it and you got to take it in. Detroit, I don't know about their defense being anything good at the time. Offense, I would think they much more improved. Bears were a complete unknown. Giants were an unknown. And the Falcons, I've kind of been open saying they would have been, the bottom tier team for the NFC, even long before the season even began and after the draft. And for the AFC, Buffalo, I would say, has the slight edge over Kansas City due to talents that Buffalo has that Kansas City doesn't, which is lack of questions on the wide receiver room and defense. Chargers, I would say they're much more of I would say the best wild card team in terms of like if one of the two teams, Chiefs and Chargers, at the time is if the Chargers are a wild card team against, if Kansas City wins it, they're the best wild card team. If Kansas City doesn't win the division and they end up being the wild card team, I think they would be the most dangerous. Cincinnati with four. I do think this team is slightly better in terms of like quarterback, offense, Uh, Aspects of their defense have not changed much in terms of their personnel. O line is going to be a question, and seeing the how the Bengals played on Sunday of Week 1 wasn't pretty, but you'll definitely see what Week 2 I had it as. Titans, Raiders, and the Ravens were all my playoff teams. Mainly, I have Baltimore as my division winner, but why they have them at 7 at the time was just more of the unknowns of their offense and defense in terms of health. Raiders, I do think Derek Carr was going to be one of the better quarterbacks with Adams, and it kind of showed, not defensively, and if they didn't have turned the football over 4 or 5 times. And the Titans, I think the AFC South is almost like the NFC East. It's a very weak division. Indianapolis, as you see, would have been my closest team to the wild card. The mediocre teams with the Patriots, Dolphins, and the Broncos. More of that is that I don't know how Mac Jones is going to carry the team with a suspect offensive play calling. Dolphins are an unknown team in terms of Tua as the guy. Denver, they're a tough one to gauge on even as a fan. While making Week 1, maybe they had the edge over the Steelers because of QB, but the Steelers do have Mike Tomlin as their head coach. And that one, I would say, is the most interchangeable one at the time. And as you see with the rest of the teams, Cleveland, Jags, Texans, and the Jets, that's more of being, mediocre teams. Or bottom feeders, you would say. But that's not knowing what Jacoby Brissett was going to do. Jacksonville, defense was shaky. Texans, unknown with their roster. Jets are the Jets. And the Steelers, if they can beat Cincinnati, just thinking at the time, not now, at the time, if they would have beaten, they would have gone higher. And they did. And you'll see how high they got. Now, Week 2. Not much change in terms of the top 3, 5, and 16. Not much has changed. Buffalo took care of the Rams. Kansas City did take care of the Cardinals. I will say why I didn't adjust those two is just based around that. While the Bills had 4 turnovers and the Chiefs only had 1, in terms of like head to head, who would I take? Would I take Josh Allen or would I take Patrick Mahomes? Pretty much a push. But I think Buffalo, in terms of playing against the Chiefs when they do go up against each other, Kansas City has the real slight edge in terms of Bills have a better defense. Bills can definitely contain their wide receivers. Don't know about Travis Kelce, but they can definitely contain them. Until that game comes up, I would say this may stay the same. But that's if, Buffalo really struggles this upcoming week against the Titans. Chargers, they did beat the Raiders. They should have finished them off, though. But again, they showed why they are dominant week 1 against the Raiders. After this Thursday night game, this will definitely be adjusted where the Chargers are going to take a fall, but how far of a fall is an unknown. That's my POV of that. But the Chargers did take care of business at the end with their defense, sacking Carr, forcing a fumble. Yeah, so I still think the top 3 stays as it is. Now, Baltimore moving up from 7 to 4. 1, it was the Jets. And 2, if Tennessee was able to beat the Giants, I think Baltimore would have moved up to 5 instead of up to 4. So I'm leaving it as that. And why Tennessee is still at 5 is just the fact that they nearly came back and won against the the Giants at the end if it wasn't a botched kick. If the kick did happen and they made it, Baltimore and the Titans would have had a big switch. Now, looking at the rest of these and why Tennessee isn't lower because they lost to the Giants, here's the thing. Dolphins did not finish off the Patriots. They did not make the lead even more of a disaster. They only scored 3 points in the second half after the Jalen Waddle touchdown. Cincinnati had 5 turnovers against the Steelers, and you may wonder why I don't have the Steelers above the Bengals. Steelers should have finished them off. That's basically why. And if Bengals did win, maybe I would have dropped the Titans down a bit, but they did not. Raiders, as I said, had a poor showing against the Chargers. While Adams looked great, everything else just did not fall into place. Now, Cleveland going up from 13 to 10 is more on the fact that they really did dominate the Browns. No, they dominated the Panthers, and while the Raiders did, sputter at the end and blew a possible comeback, Cleveland, I don't know if they're going to contend against better teams. So 10 is probably a much more fitting spot for them. Colts at 11. I think more of that has to do with tying with Houston. And as you see, Houston with a little bump up from 15 to 14. This was just an ugly showing by the Colts. Even at the end, they had a chance to win. Blankenship actually botched 2 kickoffs, one after tying and one in overtime, where Indianapolis could have lost a lot sooner, where Houston started at the 40-yard line not once but twice. Why I have the Patriots ahead of the Broncos, just simple. Terrible coaching from Denver really showed the inexperience of the team. Really did not do anything for the first 50 minutes until a sack on Geno Smith by Bradley Chubb. Patriots, while they struggled against Miami, that's typical Patriots. They have a hard time playing in Miami for the most part under Belichick. So Mac Jones, Cam Newton, Tom Brady, they struggle against Miami in Miami. So not going to put them any lower. I do think they can rebound, but we'll have to see. Uh, yeah, it was just a big mess for a variety of teams. More of, let's see, 9, 11, 12, and 13 were all a mess. And Cleveland couldn't hold a lead. That's why they're not any higher. And for the NFC, this one is crazy. Absolutely bonkers. Now, I think the first thing that may jump up at people is, why do I have the Commanders above the Saints? Carson Wentz turned the football over twice. They were down by 8 because of his turnovers, but he did manage to come back into the fold. And as I said, from week 1, Washington was going to be one of my wildcard teams, sadly. New Orleans struggling to have a lead against the Falcons should say enough. And the fact that they had to rally a comeback, being down 16, that doesn't show me they're a good team. While I do have them like in a wild card spot area, but it's just a disaster. It just seems like a disaster that, they had to come back against Atlanta. It just doesn't make sense to me. Another thing that may surprise people is, why do I have Green Bay at 9 and Arizona ahead of them when Arizona allowed 5 touchdowns from Kyler Murray? Simple. I do think that Green Bay's offense was not going to be clicking right away, even though I had a high score for them, mainly because it was the Vikings and they tend to blow leads. My thing is just that while the offense was sputtering, for the defense to allow Justin Jefferson to get 184 yards on 9 catches on some of the most mind boggling coverage blows, where Justin Jefferson just found the open lane and Green Bay had bad, I mean, really bad miscommunication. Arizona may have gotten their asses whipped for 37-7, but at least Arizona was trying to put up something even at the end. That's debatable in terms of if it could be changeable, but I'm having a hard time with Green Bay if Aaron Rodgers is really going to play like this for the rest of the season. And Arizona, I'm not going to throw the towel on them just yet. Same with Green Bay. But with Arizona, they could rally back. Who knows? Green Bay, they have Chicago. But who knows if Eberflus does have something for Aaron Rodgers. For the other teams from 1 through 5, no one deserved the number one spot. No one played that perfect. And why Tampa's up there is just because of playoff experience, and I'm not going to bash them for that. They actually held the Cowboys to the fewest points in the league so far, but the offense was not that great. Eagles, while they had a huge lead over Detroit, they nearly blew a lead. Minnesota, they played against a weak Packers team. I don't know if that's impressive or depressing. The Rams got their asses whipped by the Bills, but are they really that low? Losing to one of the AFC contenders in Buffalo? No. 49ers, I'm giving a little bit of a pass for Trey Lance because that game in Chicago where it was a rainstorm really does not help anyone. And the Bears may have gotten lucky, but Bears, they weren't that great on offense either. So if Chicago played a lot better, 49ers would have dropped a little bit more further down, but they didn't. And yeah, it's just not pretty for San Francisco. And while the Rams have had their losses against San Francisco in the last 6 meetings, the regular season, can't put them over just yet. Trey Lance is a bit unproven, so I can't really put them any higher or even lower or keep them at 4. But the Rams, I can't just drop them all the way down to, let's say, 7 at worst. It just seems out of bonkers. Seattle making a big adjustment. New York Giants, they were they played with a lot of heart against Tennessee. That 68-yard run by Barkley really uh, gave the Giants a pulse in terms of winning the game. Bears, I thought they would be a little bit of a mess, and while it was a mess, but Justin Fields being able to just get 2 touchdowns against the 49ers, that's impressive, especially in the rain like that. Atlanta, while I do think that uh, lead against the Saints is probably something the Saints may have been rusty, but all in all, worth the effort. Detroit, while I do think it could be higher, but I just don't see it. Their defense was just atrocious, allowing 4 touchdowns like they did last year and another defensive touchdown. So can't really put them that higher. While the offense did nearly come back, just don't see it. Panthers, why they're this low is just the fact that they played absolute trash like in most of the game. And I just don't see how rallying a comeback in the fourth quarter where things started to click finally is worth anything higher. In Dallas, they sucked with Dak. Like seriously, they sucked with Dak. And knowing they have Cooper Rush at quarterback, yeah, that's not pretty. They're playing against the AFC defending champions and the Bengals. Good luck. All right. Well, I got those rankings out of the way. I'll try to do a little bit more on power rankings for the week, and yeah, so I'll see like how that goes. Hope you guys do agree with the rankings. And just to recap on week ones. So this was week one's rankings. Uh, like I said, I was a little bit surprised that the Giants did win against Tennessee. Uh, Chicago winning against San Fran. Seahawks going up against the Broncos. Uh, how much of a disaster Green Bay was. With that part, Denver losing to the Hawks. Patriots really got whipped by the Dolphins. Jaguars showing why they don't have a lot of talent. Cleveland showing they were efficient with Jacoby Brissett. It is kind of a bit of a friendly offense, if you ask me. And yeah, how far Raiders, Colts, and Bengals definitely dropped real hard. And week twos, as you see, yep, these are the rankings. Hope you guys see what I see with this. If not, oh well. So hope you guys have a nice day. Make sure to subscribe, like Facebook page, follow me on Twitter, and have a nice day.